OffBeat Sports Podcast.
It's been a tale of two seasons for the Boston Celtics.
I probably aged about 10 years just from that series.
I'd probably compare myself to just a younger, smarter, more handsome, stronger Michael Jordan.
Let's go Celtics. Go Patriots.
These are guys who, when you give them a bowl of Cheerios in the morning, they finish every last drop of milk.
Absolute clown over here.
I'm ready when you are, baby.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the OffBeat Sports Podcast. Today we are joined by Ryan Warsofsky, head coach of the NHL San Jose Sharks. Thanks for joining us today, Coach.
Thanks for having me, guys. Excited to be here.
Yeah, so prior to your coaching days, you played college hockey nearby at local New England colleges in Sacred Heart and Curry. So how do you feel your experiences playing in college helped you prepare to coach in the NHL?
Yeah, I think when you play, when I kind of knew I wanted to get into coaching at a young age, and I always had it in the back of my head. So when I was going through and playing for different coaches, you take some things that you like, you take some things that you don't like, and you don't know you won't do. And I learned a lot in those years of playing. At one at Cushing Academy, and then going to Sacred Heart, and then to finishing at Curry. So I had some really good coaches. I had some coaches that I learned a lot from, kind of developed to who I was as a coach. And then my playing experiences and going through those experiences and looking back and reflecting who I was as a player and what I, thought was important to continue to develop as a player. Something that I kind of, preach with my players. And I understand everyone's taught a little bit differently and wants to be coached a little bit differently. So all those experiences kind of has put me where I am today in this role. And I look back and reflect on all those experiences.
Yeah, so the last two seasons, you have worked as an assistant coach for the Sharks under David Quinn, so overseeing the defense and penalty kill. So do you have any lessons you learned as an NHL assistant that you hope to help you adjust to being an NHL head coach this season?
Yeah, I think the big thing is going from the American League to the National Hockey League is quite different. So I learned a lot in those 2 years, the grind of a schedule, the travel, and dealing with certain players, the Eric Carlsons and the superstars and the Tommy Hurdles and the Timo Myers, how each player is coached a little bit differently and has different expectations of how players have individual goals just as well as team goals. And I think that's important. So I learned a lot in those 2 years of the grind of the National Hockey League, the travel, I guess, like I mentioned, the schedule. It's every other day you're going, and there's really no days off. It's on to the next game, review the game before. So I learned a lot in those 2 years. Coach, Quinny was really important to me and learning from him. And he's been through a lot in his coaching career. So I learned a lot from him and, his communication skills, his motivation skills. And in a situation that we're in, he was a really important, sounding board to me. And then I still talk to him. It's unfortunate kind of to what happened, but that's kind of the business we're in.
So one of your first duties as the head coach this offseason was in the NHL draft, where you guys picked BU forward Macklin Celebrini with the #1 overall pick. So kind of talk to us about what you guys kind of liked about his game, as well as like how he's been improving and developing this summer.
Yeah, Macklin's a special player. I think he's kind of was the #1 overall pick for probably the last 2 years. Everyone knew he was going to be in that spot, and we were fortunate to get the ping pong balls to drop our way. And he's a special player. He's a special person. He's ultra competitive, which is what we need most importantly in our organization right now. So he'll drive a lot of competitiveness for our team. He's his work ethic is through the roof, to the point where it's almost probably too much at times. We got to reel him back. But I spoke to Jay Pandolfo just a couple of days ago about kind of what makes Macklin tick, and just learning more about him. I've talked to Macklin quite a bit. We're excited to have him on our roster and in our organization, because he's just such a special individual, and the way he drives the culture and just the way he works is super important. I think he's got Sidney Crosby, potential, and he's got, Jonathan Taves, the way he plays a 200-foot game. He's got some really good skill, like a McDavid and a McKinnon. So, not to put, names on behind him, but he's a special individual that we're very excited about.
So you have a long-standing friendship with our former guest of the show, Pittsburgh Penguins head coach Mike Sullivan. So talk to us about the effect that Coach Sully and his family have had on your life up to this point and how he's been able to help you navigate life and career as a coach.
Yeah, Sully's been really, really important to me since I was, 4 or 5 years old, and his mom was my godmother, almost like my grandmother in a way. And I looked up to Sully quite a bit, followed his playing career and into his coaching career, and then I got into coaching, and he and I would talk quite a bit. Sometimes it was hockey related, sometimes it was decision in my career path related. So he's been a good sounding board for me. He's been a really big mentor for me, and what choices to make in this career. There was times where there was some tough decisions that I needed to make, and I needed to talk to Mike about it. Whether that was just taking this job in San Jose or going to the National Hockey League from Chicago in the American League, all the way back when I was in the ECHL making decisions. So, there was times during the summers we'd sit down, we'd talk hockey. So I lean on Mike quite a bit. Obviously, followed him since he played, and then he started his coaching career in the Providence Bruins. And just the grind it takes, and just kind of keep your head down and keep working and not worry about a year from now, 4 years from now, 6 years from now, where you're going to be, and just try to do the best job possible is something that I've learned a lot from Sully.
So both you and Sully being Marshfield guys now, do you feel that that kind of makes your relationship closer being in the league just with other guys from this area, or give you a kind of a sense of pride being representing our area on the international stage?
Yeah, for sure. I think I was talking this past week, and there's only 32 of these jobs, and I think to have two of us from Marshfield, from the South Shore, from Massachusetts, is very special. It's something that we take pride in and humbles us. I think still Mike. We talked to the draft, just a little while ago about, who would ever thought, a small town in the South Shore of Mass has two NHL coaches. And there's not a day that I go by that I don't reflect on that and think about that. And I went 4 years at Marshfield High School, and my dream was to be an NHL head coach, and here I am, kind of living that dream where a lot of kids coming up want to play in the NHL, and their dream is probably to play in the National Hockey League. Mine was to coach in it, and I'm living my dream. And I would say Mike, he played in the NHL, and then his dream was to probably win a Stanley Cup, and he's won two of them now. So I think each of us have certain goals, and I think we both reflect quite a bit. And we talked about that a lot at the draft over a couple beers.
Yeah, so the Sharks are coming off a few tough seasons. So what are some of the goals that you have for the team this season to kind of get the Sharks back to being playoff contenders and Stanley Cup contenders?
Yeah, the biggest goal for us is getting the respect back in the National Hockey League. I think these last 2 years were very difficult. I think we were an easy team to play against. I don't think we got respect the way we should. And I think, our general manager, Mike Greer, has done a really good job of putting some pieces in place this offseason where we're going to be more competitive team. We're going to be a harder team to play against. We'll have more structure and we'll be more detailed and all those sorts of things. But I think the biggest thing is we got to be more consistent. There was times when we were right in hockey games, we were competitive, we were hard team to play against, and then the next 3 nights we weren't that at all. So the biggest thing is for me is when teams leave our building or we leave a team's building. We want to make sure teams find it difficult and they don't want to play us again, win or lose. We need to find the respect back in the National Hockey League. And by doing that, we got to be more competitive in everything we do. And that will be a big emphasis going into camp here just in about a month.
All right, cool. Yeah, so we got a few less tough ones for you, some more fun ones for you. Who's the toughest player you've ever had to scheme against?
Ooh, I would have to say McDavid. McDavid and Draisaitl when I was running the penalty kill these last 2 years. Really creative, obviously, creative hockey players. And even at times, you go back and you watch, all the goals that they've scored on the power play. You do all your homework, where they're going to be, and they still find a way to score a goal, and you can't believe it. So I would say those two guys in particular on the power play. They got a great power play coach in Glenn Gulletson who does a really good job of switching things up and keeping you on your toes. And it's funny. I know him pretty well. And we get in these chess matches after in between periods of making adjustments, and then he gets me on one, I get him on another. But when you have the two of the best players in the world, usually it sides in his favor.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. We were just talking to the Stars coach yesterday, who of course played against them in the playoffs last year, and he kind of echoed what you just said. Like you can scheme all these ways to stop McDavid, but he's gonna still find a way to get his own, really, no matter what you do. He's just that good.
Yeah, it's incredible, and how fast he is. They play road hockey at times. They get out of structure and they're telepathic. They know where each other are going to be, especially him and Draisaitl. So those two guys are very difficult. And then you got Sidney Crosby and the McKinnons. Sidney Crosby, I think, has done a really good job of changing the way he's played a little bit. I know he's ultra smart, but he goes to areas to score goals. I think he's developed late in his career. That's what I've noticed a lot in coaching against him. And then McKinnon's like a Ferrari out there. He just goes 100 miles an hour, and you just got to know, you got to gap up, you got to take away his time and space, and defend from the middle of the ice on him, especially. But so those four, 3 or 4 guys are obviously the 3 of the best in the world, and you got to know when they are on the ice.
Yeah. So, do you have a favorite sports movie, whether hockey related or for a different sport?
Oh, that's a good one. I'd say Miracle on Ice. Growing up, being a hockey fan, um, being around Boston and Mike Ruzioni and Jim Craig and that team, what they did and being an underdog, reflects right now with me and our team is we're going to be, an underdog in a lot of games this year, and us against the world type of mentality. So I love, I just watched that movie with my son a few weeks ago, and that's probably the one that sticks out the most.
Yeah, so if you could have any celebrity come and watch you play, who would it be?
Oh, Tom Brady. Big Tom Brady fan, being from New England and just seeing what he's done and the way he carries himself. He's a role model for I would say a lot of players on all sports. And I think he'd be the one guy that would be the most special.
I hear through the grapevine that he's a very avid fan of our podcast, so maybe he's watching, you never know.
Yeah, that would be outstanding. Come
Yeah.
on down, Tom.
So who is the funniest player you have ever coached?
Funniest player. Mario Ferraro's got a great personality, really funny guy. Keeps the team loose. Who else? Marty Nikash, who's in Carolina, who had in the American League's a funny character. Um, Trevor Carrick, who had in the American League, we won together in Charlotte. Kind of a goofy guy, but very, very funny. So
You got to
they
have
all,
on the team.
yeah, it's very important. That's something that gets lost, I think, is you could have some personalities in your locker room to keep it loose at times. It's a long year. You're with each other, more than you're with your family. So you got to make sure you're keeping it loose, and those guys are important.
Yeah, and one last question to wrap it up. If there's one thing that you could tell to any Shark fan that's could be watching this episode right now, what would you want them to know?
I think we're going to be better than people think. I think we're going to be a fun team to watch. They'll be proud of us in the way we play and with a blue collar mentality that we're gonna, outwork our opponent. We're gonna be detailed. I think when they leave a building that we're playing in, whether that's at home in the Shark Tank or on the road, they'll be proud of us in the effort we put in. Again, I'm gonna try to take some of that, New England blue collar mentality that I grew up with, to our Sharks team, and hopefully that our community can kind of rally around that and be proud of the team that's on the ice. Win or lose, you're going to see a team that puts everything out there that they got. And I grew up a Bruins fan, and I was a fan once, and I watched the Bruins, and I listened to press conferences, and I listened to podcasts and WEI and all the people calling in, and I know how much people care about being a fan and being a fan of a certain team, because I was them once. So I know how important it is to our community in the Bay Area, that people care, that people want to know why we lost. They want to know, what we're doing to win hockey games, what the future looks like. Do we hold each other accountable? All those things, I think, is what I think our team can and show our team can show to the Bay Areas. We're going to be accountable. We're going to give everything we got. When something goes wrong, we're going to try to work to fix it. Because I understand what the fan wants. Because I was once a fan, being out from New England in a big sports city.
Yeah, that's a very good point because the New England sports mentality, as many people heard with the Celtics this year, was every loss is the end of the world, but wins
Yeah,
are just normal. Like
yeah,
nobody
spot
celebrates
on.
the regular season wins, but every loss is the end of the world.
Yeah, I mean, I'm living out here now, and the Red Sox going through right now. You
Oh yeah.
you lose and they're done, and then they win three in a row and they're back in it. So you live and die by the wins and losses, and that's just the world we live in, and the job I took. I understand the pressures and the stresses and the when you win you're relieved, when you lose you wonder if you're ever going to win again. So I get all of that, and I get what I signed up for, and I understand the expectations that people have, not just in this Bay Area, but in sports in general today. It's high pressure situations, and people want they want results. It's a results driven business. So we're going to try to bring some results to San Jose.
Yeah, and that's all we got for you. Thank you, Coach, for taking the time to
Yeah,
do this with us, and best of luck this season.
no
Can't wait to
problem, guys. Anytime, and best of luck to you guys. You guys do a great job.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for watching. Be sure to check us out on Instagram at offbeat_sports and on TikTok at offbeat sports. We'll see you next time.
Call them all Texans.